Okay, well, welcome to this session. It is our fourth webinar in a series of presentations. Today, we're going to talk about the Customer Relationship Management module, also called the CRM. This is found in the WorkSource Georgia portal. It is on the staff side, so any staff member who is interacting with employers, this is something that you may want to utilize for tracking your activity. So we're going to go over all that today. I do want to let you know that if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions in the chat. Your chat option is generally at the bottom of your page. You can go ahead and click that. You can put any questions in there as we go. At the end of the session, we are going to do a Q&A. First thing I want to bring up is that we are doing everything in the training region. So make sure that if you get in and you're starting to play with the CRM itself, that you're doing everything in the training region unless you're putting in real data. Real data goes in production. Anything that's fictitious would go into the training region. And some of the things that we're going to cover today, we are talking about the CRM and an overview of the system. I'm going to demo how to use it. We're going to talk about tracking activities and interactions with employers, how you document those services. We're also going to cover converting a marketing lead to a recruiting employer, and I'm going to break down what a marketing lead is versus an employer who's recruiting. And then we're going to talk about how to enter those case notes, as well as making sure that you're putting those services in. We're also going to recap some policy items to ensure that all staff are utilizing the CRM to track your activities with employers. First, I want to talk about what is the CRM. The Customer Relationship Management System is a technology that's used for managing your business relationships and interactions with your employer customers. This is your current employer customers as well as potential employer customers. And that'll all make sense when we start talking about that marketing lead. The CRM system also helps staff manage any of your outreach efforts. So it's really important that you gain an understanding of using this system and begin to get in there and start learning how to put this information in the system. So who all is going to use this system? Well, anyone who's working with employers would want to utilize it. First, your business services unit, which is the Title III staff, your business retention and rapid response staff, the Jobs for Veterans State Grant, JVSG, the LEVers, the local Veterans Employment Representative staff, your statewide business services staff on the Title I side, and then any statewide apprenticeship staff. So before we get in the portal, I want to point out that there's two ways to get to the CRM. You have a left-hand navigation, and then you have widgets that are on your dashboard. So if you've been in the system, you know that if you go to the left-hand side of the system, there's different places you can navigate, and then you have specific widgets that are on your dashboard. So we're going to get in there, and we're going to show you how to get in there. So I'm going to go to the training region. Okay. I've already signed in. And so I'm going to come down, and I do want to point out, I'm going to talk about work items. And when I get into that part, anytime you sign in to the system initially and you have open work items, it will pop up when you first sign in. So when I come down on the page, you're going to see my CRM widgets right here. Yours may be in a different spot. It's good because you can move these anywhere you want on the page. But this is where mine is. And you see that I have 4 different links in that CRM widget. If I come over to the left-hand side and I scroll down, I have more links over here. And so you want to make sure that whatever you're trying to get to, it may be over in this left-hand navigation. Now, I want to point out any new employer that you are working with, and let's say that employer is somebody that you've come into contact with, that you're trying to market our services to, those are what is going to be called a marketing lead. They do not currently have an account in the system, and so you need to document minimal details to be able to put services in and track your interactions with them. So if you're emailing them and you're calling them, you want to be able to track that in the system. And so that's what we call a marketing lead. There's 2 ways you can do this. you can select create a marketing lead on this left-hand navigation. And you see I have 3 different links here. I'm going to go over each of these links, but you have a manual entry way of doing it. So if you're working with one specific employer that you've met maybe at an event or maybe a Chamber of Commerce meeting, you could do your manual entry here. Then you also have a batch ad. So let's say you are at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and you got in contact with maybe 10 employers and you want to mass upload those 10 contacts. You can do that with this option. And then you also have the ability to pull any spider jobs in and those employers' information. So you'll be able to do, make those marketing leads rather. So anyone who has a spider job, you can pull that employer information in so that you can begin contacting them to get them to post directly on the system. The other way to get to the page is going to be through your widget. So if I go back to the dashboard and I select this marketing leads, you're going to see it looks a little different because what it does is it pulls up my contact list of any current marketing leads that I have. So I have to go here to select add marketing lead. This is the page that's going to take you to, if you were to select that manual entry link that I just showed you, it's going to take you to this page. So there's 2 ways to get here. And I'm going to select continue. The FEIN is not required. So most of us probably wouldn't have that FEIN because this is somebody that we haven't necessarily worked with one-on-one. It's somebody we've just met. They're not necessarily going to hand you their FEIN. Now, I do see on this page it pulled in an FEIN, and that's because that's the browser. So you need to pay attention to that. If your browser is doing that, you need to clear your cache. So now I'm going to put in the company name. As I start to type the company that I am working with, it's going to bring up anyone that's currently registered in Georgia. It's pulling from a database. However, let's say they're not registered. I don't have anything. It's not coming up. I can continue to type and put in the information. And then I'm going to come down and put in their zip code. And then I'm going to put in the street address. And then I've got to put in the mailing address. And the name. Phone number, and then method of contact. And likely you may not have all of that. You may have a phone number versus an email address. So whatever you have, then that's what you would put in. So I'm just going to say for now, maybe an email, and I'll put their email address in. Then I'm going to come down. It's going to ask me to put in that NAICS code. And I would put that in. I'm just going to select something. And then I'm going to hit save. And it is processing it. It's going to take me to another page in a second. But mind you, this is the training region, so it does run a little bit slower. Okay. So now my person or my company that I'm working with has now pulled into the CRM. And this is where I'm going to see all these different details that I can begin to start adding in the CRM. And you notice it automatically assigned a username for this individual. It doesn't have, it's going to have just a general password. It doesn't have a lot of different details because they don't really have an account in the system. This is just for us to track that information. Eventually, our goal is to get them into recruiting. Now, if I open up this company information section, you're going to see all the information that I just typed. And when I come down, you're going to see this account type. So what I've done is I've created that marketing lead. The goal eventually is to get them to recruiting, right? So you're going to want to eventually, hopefully you'll get it updated to here, but there's 3 different types of accounts that you're going to be able to view in this CRM. You have marketing leads, which is your employer who's currently not in the system. They're not able to use the labor exchange system. Then you have your recruiting employer. That's an employer who currently has an account in the system. They already are utilizing the system for labor exchange purposes, but you want to utilize the CRM to document some of your interactions with those employers. Then you have a TPA. TPA is a third-party agent, so that is someone who is representing an employer to help them post their jobs. Generally, it is for an employer who is a federal contractor, is what we see more of, as well as immigration attorneys. Often they are third-party agents and they represent those employers for PERM, foreign labor certification. Then if you come down, you're going to be able to see this marketing profile. Now, we're going to talk about outreach campaigns in a minute, but you could add a campaign to the system, and this is where you're going to want to maybe advertise maybe our services, and you want to contact a group of individuals who are in the CRM versus individuals who are already registered. So like if you were to put an event in, you could automatically send all these emails out and market your event to people who are already registered. This is an avenue to get not just those that are registered, but also those who are not and that you have been working with or have contacts with that are not necessarily in the system recruiting at this point. But maybe you want to advertise an event and hopefully get them to that point. So you could add campaigns in here. And then if I come down, there's other information if I wanted to put some follow-up in here. But what I definitely want to point out, and this is what is likely going to be your everyday activities. You're coming in, you're creating this marketing lead, and then you're going to come down and you're going to create a work item. So what are you doing with this employer? So it's important that you are adding a work item every single time you create a marketing lead. For this to count towards your performance or anything that you're doing in your workload, you're going to need to have a work item with every single marketing lead that you're creating. So to do that, you're going to select Add Work Item. And I am in a staff work group customer relationship manager. Now we are going to need to visit with each of you in your sections what work group you're assigned to. So right now, if you go in and you're not assigned to a work group, what's going to happen is when you go to create this work item, you're not going to have this option to currently assign it to yourself. It's actually going to automatically show as unassigned. So it's important when we start utilizing this, we have these work groups set up, and I've already contacted the data team for us to start working on that. But you're going to go ahead and put in whatever that category is. Is this a face-to-face meeting that you're planning? Is this a phone call that you are going to have with this employer? Is it a site visit, a webinar? So I'm just going to put in here that I am planning a face-to-face meeting with this employer. And this is a new employer that I'm working with. And this face-to-face meeting is going to happen on next week on the 5th. I can set a priority, and then I can create a case note based on what is happening. And it's important that you all are documenting these and putting good case notes in the system. So in this instance, I might say, meeting employer next week to discuss the labor exchange system. And then I can come down and hit save. And it's thinking, again, this is the training region. Sometimes it takes a minute. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to come down. It's taking me back to the CRM, and I can come to this activities. You see where I've put in this work item. I can also add appointments. So if I wanted to add an appointment, I'm going to select that. And I can add it to my calendar and any attendees I select. And then I'm going to put in, and actually I want to put back on my calendar. Hang on a minute. There we go. And then I'm going to put in a subject. So maybe my subject is site visit. And here I'm going to put in my description, visit with employer to discuss the labor exchange system. You can also create templates if you want to do that. What this appointment type is, it's in person, it's a custom location because I'm going to his location or hers. And then my start time. So I'm going to go on April 5th at 9 a.m. and I'm expecting this to be about an hour. And maybe I want a reminder. And I've already accepted this. I can also select additional staff if I want to add other staff to it. It's pulled in, I don't know why it did that 3 times, but it pulled in the employer that is attending. Now, if I wanted to add other employers, I could select employers and I could pull in additional ones. But in this instance, this is a one-on-one meeting with this employer. And then I could select whatever that method of notification is, and this appointment will be sent to that individual. I can keep it internally, but likely if they're not already in the system and they're not going to a message center, you're going to need to select the email if that's the option that you have, or your contact information. And then you can also download this to your local calendar. And this contact is a new prospect. And I'm going to select save. Okay. And now you're going to see that appointment here, and it's actually also on my dashboard. If I go back to my dashboard, and I go to my calendar, I have my site visits here, and you see them in here, and I can click on each one of those. So now I'm going to go back to my dashboard because I want to show you how to get back to these. So I can go to this marketing leads link, and this is going to pull in everyone that is assigned to me that I've got as a marketing lead. And you're going to see the one I just put in here. So if I have something else I wanted to document with this individual, I can just go back here and select the name of the person. And I can come back down to the part where I've got my activities. I could add another work item if I wanted to. But this is what I want to make sure that we're doing, is also adding any case notes. So it's important that you're adding your case notes and editing. So when I put in my work item, I went ahead and created a case note at the same time. You can add additional case notes here. But what you're definitely going to want to do, for sake of being able to tell what all this is about, you can see that it automatically wrote from work item ID 13. Well, that really doesn't tell me much. So maybe I want to add something else to it. You can do it that way, or you could just delete that whole line and type site visit. And then you're going to come down, and that is going to be a face-to-face. And then we're going to come down and save. Now, here's something I want to point out. My case note updated here, so you see my subject. Anytime I add a case note in the CRM, it will write to the staff, to the employer profile in the system right here under case notes. However, if you go to case notes right here and enter a case note up here, it will not write to the CRM. This profile up here is similar if they had a recruiting account and you see that employer portfolio, that's what this is. So it's important, anything you want everyone else to see, that you're coming to the CRM to add those case notes so that it will write it over to this case management profile. Not coming here and entering it here, because it will not write it to here. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show you is I'm going to go over to my left-hand navigation and I'm going to select create a marketing lead. And I want to show you this batch ad. So I can do batch ad marketing leads. And how this works is if you had, however many people, maybe it's 5, 10, 15 that you want to add to a spreadsheet, you would download this spreadsheet. And then you would need to fill all these fields out. And then you're going to save all that, save it to your desktop or wherever you want to save it. And then you're going to have to come over here and select the file and upload it. And then it will load those contacts into the system as marketing leads. I'm going to come back over and I'm going to select create a marketing lead again. And I'm going to select this external employers. So let's say I have, I'm wanting to look at anyone we have spider jobs with, and maybe I want to do outreach to those employers so that I can get them in as a marketing lead and actually convert them to a recruiting, because that's the ultimate goal. So I might come in here and let's say I'm interested in contacting Piedmont Healthcare. I'm going to select convert to lead. And again, my browser is, I need to clear my cache. Okay, so it pulled in Piedmont Healthcare. Here's their address. I'm going to select the mailing address here again, so it will pull in this section. And then here's the contact information that was retrieved from the file that's uploading these spider jobs. Then I would just select whatever method of contact it is. Maybe it's a, maybe at this point, I don't really have an email. I don't know if this is even going to be text message because that's their primary phone. So maybe it's just going to be internal message at this point, and you're going to make a phone call later. I do need to get the NAICS code. And then I'm going to select NAICS code and I'm going to hit save. And it should take me back to the, back to the CRM. And so now I have this employer that was from the spider jobs that I've now pulled in as a marketing lead that I can then begin to add any work items and again, case notes. Now, what I want to make sure that everybody pays attention to is the fact that your work item is not a service. It's a way for you to track your activities. So you're going to need to make sure that any services that you're providing, that you're also documenting that, because we do report on employer services on a yearly basis. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So I think right here is where some may get confused, because down here, your work item is also under an activities folder. However, if I wanted to enter services, it's also entitled activities under the case management profile. But your services are actually up here not in the CRM. It's in this profile. So I'm going to select activities. And this is exactly how it is if the employer was a recruiting employer and they have these exact same links. So I select service plan. And remember, in one of the other presentations, we had where you could enter a singular service or we can add multiple services. So I'm just going to select add service. And then maybe I want to put in, maybe it was a rapid response event. And it was scheduled today. It ended today. It's completed successfully. My region, my office, my position. I do need to enter the worksite location. And I hit save. Now it's added that service, and this service is actually mapped to the report that we send yearly on the effectiveness of serving employers report. So this is important that staff are doing these items each time they are working with an employer. So one, if it's not an employer that's currently in the system, you're creating a marketing lead. After creating a marketing lead, you are adding a work item. After adding a work item, you can add a case note at the same time as the work item. But if you don't do that, you need to come back in and add a case note. You're going to go back to your case notes and edit that title so that it is something that someone is going to know what that's talking about without having to click within the case note. And then you're going to enter your service. You can do the same thing for any recruiting employers. If you went into the CRM and you pulled any of your recruiting employers, then you could also, you would be doing the same thing. You could come here to marketing leads and you can filter on recruiting employers. And you could go in and actually begin to, and you can also do a search on those as well, but you can pull those in and then you're going to do the exact same steps that I just went through. Okay. Let's see. The other piece that I want to talk about is, I do want to show you how to change it. Let me go back to marketing lead. I want to show you how to change a marketing lead to a recruiting employer. So I've been talking to No Wait Legal Services, and Rhonda is ready to become a recruiting employer. So in that instance, I'm going to come down and I'm going to open up that company information. I'm going to uncheck marketing lead and I'm going to check recruiting. And I'm going to update the account type. It's going to ask me, are you sure you want to do that? I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to make me complete the registration. And this is something you would be working with the employer to obtain all this data. So they do business the same as their company name. And let's see. The FEIN in. It pulled in their address already because I had that. Do need to put in what her title is. I'm going to come down. Are all the fields that are required completed? If so, I also need to come down and put in the type of employer. Are they a federal contractor? And are they willing to hire candidates remotely? I could come in and add any additional information like the company profile. This is all the same fields as if the person was creating an account to be a recruitment, if they did it on their own or if you're doing it for them. And we did go over that in another webinar. And I hit save. And it's about to take me back. It's thinking. There we go. Okay, so now it's taking me back to the CRM. Here's something you're going to want to make sure that you're doing. Number one, you want to put a case note in about now converting them to a recruiting employer and what occurred to get to that point. Now, you're going to come up, but you want to make sure if you go to general information that it actually enabled that employer. So they are enabled. So I caution staff that if this is somebody you really are not, haven't been working with on a close basis, you need to be very careful about enabling these accounts because you don't want any kind of fraudulent activity to get in the system. So there is a validation process that we go through, and hopefully if you've been working with this person, you've already deemed that they are legitimate at that point. Okay. Now I'm going to come up to the dashboard. And let's say I had all these open work items and I need to know what I need to be following up on, right? I'm going to select the work items and you see all these work items that I have going on and the dates that these are due. So let's say I did this site visit early and I want to go ahead and show it as completed. I'm going to close it and I'm going to go ahead and show my completion date as today. And I'm going to say whatever the message was on why I'm closing this. Employer stated they did not have any current openings. Will follow up in a month. And then I would save it. Now, what you're going to want to do then is go back to that employer, put another work item in that's going to trigger you to follow up with that employer in a month. This is preventing you from having to keep putting stuff on an Outlook calendar or something like that to keep track of all your employers. You can do it all in the system. So it's important that staff are utilizing this for these purposes. Now, again, if I scroll down, you see all these unassigned. Basically, what's happened is these individuals, when they put them in, they were not part of a work group and it didn't assign it. So again, it's very important that when we begin to use this, we have that worked out with the data team on these work groups and making sure that everyone has the right permissions to be able to assign these work items to themselves. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And I actually want to go to the left-hand navigation. I want to talk about the outreach campaigns. So earlier we talked about you could create a campaign. And so again, this would be a little different than if you had your recruiting employers, you could go into the event system and advertise that event to any recruiting employers. This is a way for you to create a campaign and advertise to everybody. And so you could have a public relations campaign, an advertisement, and I know that's misspelled. That's a ticket's been entered to fix that. Email, telemarketing, a conference, any partners, referral programs, etc. So you could create any kind of campaign. Now, I will say this. You need to be coordinating this as well with business services. We shouldn't have people just creating a bunch of campaigns and sending all this stuff out without some coordination. So just make sure that you're doing that. But that's really what this purpose is. And when you create your campaigns, you can actually go to the CRM and you can email these people out. You can also create a campaign and email it out here as well. And if we want to do some additional training on doing the outreach campaigns, we can do that. But I don't want to go too far in depth because I really want you to get the gist of what your everyday activities are likely going to be, which is making sure that, again, you're putting those people in as a marketing lead, you're putting in your work items, you're following up on those work items, you are entering your case notes, and you're entering services. But on the left-hand side of this menu, I do also want to show you the ability to do online surveys. You can go in and create a survey. This is something that you are going to want to coordinate with business services and the data team, because you are not going to want to be going in here and creating mass surveys and sending it out to everyone. And you have multiple groups sending surveys, but the same employer getting 3 or 4 or 5 surveys. So we want to make sure we're also creating those, coordinating those activities. Let's see. I want to also take you to reports, which is going to be on the left-hand navigation. And I'm going to select detailed reports. And here are the employer reports, client relationship management, and you can pull all these different reports based on what it is you're looking for. So any kind of follow-ups that individuals have entered in the system with businesses, any work items. You can also do it by staff. So if I wanted to do by staff work item, I could go in and I'm going to select all because there's limited data in here. And I'm going to say registration status all. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to run my report. And now you get an overview. So you can see that I've got a site visit going on, email, phone call, and this gives you an overview of what's happening with this individual. And you can click in here and go further into it. And what I recommend that individuals do, and I think this is mainly going to be more of your management, that when they're going in and they're pulling these reports, if you find that there's something else that you need, then I would get with the data team on what it is that you need to pull out of the system. Also, we can do some additional sessions later on more details on these reports, but I encourage you, after you get some data in the system, that you go in and start looking at some of these reports and pulling what is available in the system to you up front. And let me see. I also want to show you one more thing, and then I've got just a few policy items to cover. So if I was to click on this marketing lead, I can go up here and select the marketing details, and I can add additional information to the profile. So I can say what their business category is, what was my lead source, what's the status. Maybe I closed it because they became a recruiting employer. What's the probability of getting them to be a recruiting employer? Any kind of money spent on marketing. Is this a warm or a cold lead? Competitor, it's competitor, and then who's the owner. So that's basic. And some of this you may or may not utilize, but it is in here. And then who is it that you're talking to? Do they have any influence? Are they the decision maker? Are they an influencer? But most of the time, what you need to be doing, and I'm going to keep stressing this, is that you need to be putting in new employers as marketing leads. You need to add your work items. You need to follow up with your work items, and you need to enter your services. Okay. And I'm going to go back to the presentation and cover some of these. So your policies were distributed yesterday, so you probably haven't had an opportunity to actually read through them and digest that information, but it is found in the WIG COM 23-002. So there's an overview on the CRM. There's an attachment on reporting on effectiveness of serving employers that talks about those services and where those feed into that report, and the importance of documenting your services. And then there is an attachment 2, which is a quick user guide on using the CRM. But I recommend too that if you get stuck or you have questions, that you reach out to Workforce at worksourcega.org for assistance. Also, there is a user guide within the system under that Staff Learning Center, and you can pull up the CRM module there. Now, as far as policies, all state merit staff involved in the direct delivery of services to businesses are mandated to use the CRM to track services, coordinate your service delivery to employers, and report all staff activities with employers. You must document their contact information, identify service opportunities, document your interactions, and record reportable services. So when we talk about documenting those interactions, that again is your work items and any case notes, and then the reportable services. You had to go up to that link at the top and select activities at the top of that portfolio profile. Any LWDA staff directly involved in the delivery of WIOA services to businesses are not required to use the CRM, but are highly encouraged to do so. So why is it important that we do this? Well, first of all, it's going to enhance the data collection and reporting of business-related activities, because the more we put in here, the more we're able to also report up to USDOL all the wonderful services that you're doing. If you do not put them in the system, then we are essentially under-reporting the activities that we provide. Also, it offers an opportunity for delivering integrated and streamlined services to businesses. So let's say you have 3 different people that are working with the same employer. Well, this is going to prevent some of that crossover, because you're going to be going into the CRM before going out to visit new employers to make sure that someone's not already working with them and what activities have been happening. And then maybe you can even team up with that person if there's something else that you're working on with a different project or event. You can also utilize it to develop long-term relationships with employers. So we're able to track all those activities that's happening. We could go back for years and look at, okay, well, let's see where this person came in, and this has been a long-term employer, and they continue to do business with us. And then we have all those historical records of those activities. Now, there's 3 types of accounts, and just reiterating this, 2 of which are employer accounts. Your marketing lead is an employer account. Your recruiting employer is an employer account. Your marketing lead is anyone that is not registered, and they cannot utilize any of the recruitment tools in the portal. Your recruiting, they do have an account in the portal, and they have the ability to utilize all the labor exchange services as long as they are enabled. And then you have your third-party agent, which is not generally an employer. That is a company that represents employers to help them post their jobs or manage their jobs. And that, again, is generally for federal contract compliance, as well as foreign labor certification for perm orders. You have a lot of immigration attorneys that are TPAs. Now, as far as the policy with creating marketing leads and work items, you want to make sure, again, you're creating any new company that's not currently in the portal. They must be a marketing lead. And then that's going to identify that account with any potential recruiting opportunities. And the whole goal at the end is to get them to recruiting. And then adding those work items. So you have the opportunity to put in there if it's an email, a face-to-face, if it's mail, a phone call, research, site visit, webinar, demo. And so these are all things that you would be putting in the system. And some of the examples that you may want to utilize the system for. So let's say you have an employer that has, you've heard it has openings, and we don't have them in the system. So you go out and you source out that employer, you talk to them. You want to start immediately putting that information in the system. Let's say you are with Rapid Response and you have a Rapid Response event going on, and that company may be laying people off, but you still want to be able to record services on that employer. Put them in the CRM, document those activities, and put that service in. They may not be a recruiting employer right now, maybe later on, they may be. Also, maybe you're working at a layoff event and you are locating employers in the local area that hire individuals for the same type of work for the people that are getting laid off. Then in that instance, you're working with business services, and maybe you're doing outreach in that area and you're contacting all these employers. Well, you want to go ahead and start putting them in the CRM to indicate that you've already contacted them and what was the result. And then, of course, with your lever, you would be putting any employer that you're going out. Maybe you're planning on visiting a company to talk to them about hiring veterans, and maybe you have a specific veteran that you're trying to market. Again, put these individuals in the CRM. Now, you must ensure that you're marking your status of your work item. So when I did it, I put it in as new, but you may go in and update that to on hold, in progress, closed, maybe it's in review or pending. More likely, you're going to use new, in progress, or closed. But in some instances, you may want to utilize on hold. Now, you do need to enter a due date or close the task if it's completed. This way you can track it. So you've got to put that due date in for it to show up in your work item listing for you to continue to follow up on. Again, you're going to ensure case notes are on each record. If the employer has an account and you enter a case note on the account under the staff profile, the case note will not appear in the CRM. However, if you put it in on the CRM, it will appear under the staff profile. Please have cleared case notes with dates and times of follow-up and what took place. As far as converting the accounts to recruiting, staff can convert a marketing lead to a recruiting account. It will enable the account if you have the appropriate permissions. Again, be sure you're documenting the account that you've done this. Recruiting accounts that are enabled will have full access to the labor exchange functions in the portal. So they'll be able to manage job orders, they will be able to review resumes, and they will be able to manage any virtual recruiter alerts. And then document your services. You can refer to the WorkSource Georgia Portal Activity Service Guide for Title III, Wagner Pizer, MSFW, and JVSG. It was issued with WP 23-004. Those are all the services that are currently listed. Of course, we can always go in and add additional services if needed. That would go through the data team. We also have information on the federal reporting requirements, and that is outlined in attachment 1, reporting on the effectiveness of serving employers, and that is going to outline each service and where that maps to in the report. And of course, that is evolving as USDOL has also given us some additional details on that, and making sure that we are documenting any retention as well. And I'm sure you'll be seeing additional guidance on that. Now, USDOL ETA requires states to document services provided to employers and to report these annually. And that is across all WIOA title programs. Services are currently broken down into 8 categories, and an employer may receive services from any category or within any combination of these categories as appropriate. So you have employer information and support services, workforce recruitment assistance, engaged in strategic planning and economic development, accessing untapped labor pools, training services, incumbent worker training services, rapid response and business downsizing assistance, and then planning layoff response. And again, additional guidance will be provided regarding reporting and performance indicators as it relates to the effectiveness in serving employers. You also have the reports in the CRM that we talked about earlier, and you can pull on staff work items and activities by staff that have been entered into the CRM. Again, we have customer surveys, and just make sure that you're coordinating that with business services and the data team before creating surveys. And that brings us to the end. So do you have any questions for us? We got some in the chat.
Wanda, we had quite a few in the chat, but I was able to respond to them. Basically, we had one from Rob. He was asking if we have to get permission or notify the employer that they are being added to the CRM that is accessed by multiple departments, concerned about negative feedback if they are unknowingly added and then contacted by others. I just basically said that typically there would be conversation or discussion with an employer prior to adding them to a CRM. I'm not sure if you wanted to add more onto that.
What we're pulling in is very limited data. So it's data that's public. So if we're pulling in information off of, let's just say the spider jobs, you saw it pulled in the person's phone number and their email address and their name, that's public information. So I would say no to that you don't necessarily need to get someone's permission to document that. It would be the same as if you were using another resource to put your all of your employer contacts in. And I know some of the units were utilizing other resources to document that. It'd be different if you were collecting FEINs and putting it in there, but you're not. In that instance, the FEIN is not required.
Yeah, Rhonda, and I'll echo what you said. And I also remember everybody that we're using this as an internal tool. We're not using it to sell or share any data. We're using it strictly as a communication and documentation tool internally for us. So if you think about it that way, more than I guess like a database to create like generate marketing flyers to, I think it'll probably make more sense that you actually even have to tell them, the employer at all, that you're using a tool to manage, your contact with them.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had Rob also ask about import capability and merging data from another CRM, but I directed him to contact Nicole McQueen or Stephen Wilson, since it's a system integration question rather than system function. I don't know if you wanted to add to that as well.
Would say, yes, we can contact Nicole, but I know one way you could do it is if you were able to pull that data out into a spreadsheet and then you utilize that batch upload option that was on creating those marketing leads. You could do that and batch upload with that spreadsheet. That's one way, but of course I would email workforce, and then they can, of course, reach out to the vendor and see if there's another way to import that data. Good question.
This is Andrea. So like, give it as an example, Alto Scientific was in EG, and of course their data got transferred over to this particular system. However, would they still be considered, like if I was to reach out to them again, would they be considered a new as a marketing lead, or because they were in the old system and they
They should be in
transferred
there as
over
recruiting. They should be in there as a recruiting employer because they were in the
already?
old system. Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Now, we have had some data issues, so if you find that some of them are not, let us know, because I know that the data team's working through some of those conversion problems that we had.
Okay, could Donna and Tracy Wilson go ahead and ask their questions? You can go ahead and unmute your mic and ask the questions.
Miss Rhonda, how you doing?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So when I look in there, sometimes I guess it's information that's been transferred over from EGA, but they haven't posted any new jobs or anything in the system, say like from like 2020 or 2018. Do we keep suggesting that they do, or do we just go off the old information? I mean, they haven't, I don't know. I don't want to badger the employers.
I don't think there's anything wrong with conducting outreach. We have not done that. And I think that you make a valid point. So anything that was in Employ Georgia, let's say they haven't posted anything since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I would call the employer and ask them if there's anything we can do to assist them. We understand that they posted with us back in 2018 and we're just
Mhm.
following up. And it's a way to kind of win them back, right?
Okay. Yeah. Good point. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I wasn't sure how to handle that situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good example.
Thank you,
Because we do
Rhonda.
have a lot of them. And I will say some of them too are likely employers that were connected to federal contracts too. So you might
Mhm.
call them and they say, oh, we don't handle that. It's handled by Circa or whoever, and they may have created another account.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I have a question.
Um,
I think I understood you to say if we have an event in the system, like a job fair or something like that, and we wanted to invite these marketing employers to that to hopefully get them to be a recruiting employer in the system. Did you go over how to do that? Or so we've got the event in, I can invite the marketing. I
It's
might
going
have
to
missed.
be through a campaign. and you can do it through a campaign. And we can have another session where we walk through how to do a campaign. I didn't want to dig into that much today. What I wanted to focus on more was at least us getting started on entering these employer contacts and putting in these activities.
Okay. Well, I've been using this tool, but I've not been using the work item portion of the tool. So from here forward, I need to do that with everything that I'm doing with these marketing employers, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And adding to what she was saying, I was wondering whether or not we would be able, under the campaign, upload a flyer.
There is an attachment option. You can.
And also, I know when we were at the summit, there was some indication that we were utilizing Launchpad / Salesforce, and that they would be merging information. Has that taken place?
We would need to get with the business services team on that.
Yeah, so I think that might be a misunderstanding. There was, I want to say, Atlanta WorkSource, I think, uses Salesforce. There won't, the portal will not allow us to just import Salesforce data, or the CRM won't allow us to import Salesforce data. I think what we were trying to do is, I mean, for those that are invested in Salesforce right now, I understand it's just not a good idea to just cut that off and just start using, because you would have to recreate that data. But along the line, maybe start entering, like maybe using both, and just start, using the CRM module more, as using it as a slow transition more than, I stop my Salesforce today and then I'm using the CRM tomorrow.
Hmm.
And we can also, again, revisit that batch upload. Because remember, you have a batch upload option.
Right. And you know what, Rhonda, that may be something we may need to get with Nicole and Damon's team to see
Yeah.
if that will become a feature, or is that something we can approach Geo about. But I'm sorry, that can be an offline conversation, Rhonda. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be
Okay.
nice if they could provide it in that Excel format, so that it could be just transferred on over. I mean that would create less complication and productivity time for us. And my other thing was under the special character area for the employer. I didn't see under there where it said something background friendly or second chance employer or anything like that.
That's not going to be in the CRM. That's going to be more when you get into the, well, it might be in that first part of the CRM. It does say that at the very bottom, and it's in when we went to create a recruiting account, it was at the very bottom. I do know that for the recruiting, it is in there.
Yeah, I think it shows up when you're converting the
Converting to
marketing
the-
lead.
to the
Yeah,
recruiting.
recruiting employer, yes.
So if they're putting their own information in, creating their own account, you're saying it's in there?
Staff can create an employer account for recruiting, and the employer can enter it themselves.
Yeah, I'm saying
And yes,
if they were creating their own account, is that in there? That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
For
Yes,
them to
it
select
is.
background friendly or whatever.
Yes,
Oh,
it is in there.
okay.
And Rhonda, this is Damon. I will say that, if there are local areas that are using other systems that they are wanting to integrate, certainly I will say that I know that Geographic Solutions does not allow us to connect another system to their system because of proprietary technology that they're using. However, if you are looking to move out of that system, then there might be, to Donna's point, there might be discussions that you could export your data from that other system in a specific format that then we could upload into Geographic Solutions and start using that VOS system on a primary basis. So that's something that, again, if you reach out to Nicole and Stephen, we can look at doing. I also just wanted to make mention that on the one slide you had mentioned that this is required for the local area. I'm sorry, for the Career Center staff, and for local areas it is not mandatory. However, I would strongly encourage, because this ultimately goes into a roll-up report at the end of the year that goes to the feds, as Rhonda mentioned, and that is supposed to be informing the feds about how many employers do we have contact with and what type of contact, and it will soon become data that they will be rolling up and passing on to Congress to be talking about how to change WIOA rules and laws and whatever else to be able to incorporate more business engagement and things of that nature. So certainly, if you've got the capability, I would appreciate you putting that in the system, because it allows us to give a good, accurate report, and it doesn't. It allows us to put forward a good foot when we're talking with with the feds about how many employers is Georgia serving. So I would definitely encourage that.
All right. Good information. So did we have any other questions on regarding the CRM? Okay. Well, if you think of anything, you can email the WSGA staff policy mailbox, and we'll be happy to look at some of your questions, and if we need to reach out to workforce. But if you have questions regarding your permissions, or you have issues with permissions in the CRM, that would be workforce@worksourcega.org. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for joining the session.